For more than 3 centuries, the kingdom of Al-Hirah stood as the absolute greatest Arab power between the Roman and Persian worlds. Its final king would witness the end of an era, the fall of an ancient dynasty, and a chain of events that would literally reshape the future of Arabia forever. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the epic, cinematic story of Al-Numan III. I want you to picture this: sweeping desert landscapes, vast, bustling trade routes, and 2 massive ancient empires locked in a bitter struggle for supremacy. And right in the middle of all of it, nestled alongside the Euphrates River, stood the Lakhmid Kingdom of Al-Hirah. For over 300 years, this kingdom was the undisputed Arab powerhouse of late antiquity. As you can see here in Bernard Lewis's historical analysis, Al-Hirah was way more than just some military encampment. It was a vital, culturally rich Arab community. Yes, it was an essential outpost for the Persian Empire, but it drew heavily from both the Hellenistic and Persian worlds, creating a truly unique, vibrant society right on the edge of the desert. Section 1. Arabia between 2 empires. To really understand this, imagine being sandwiched between 2 global superpowers. During this era, the Sasanian Empire in the east and the Byzantine Empire in the west were fighting a massive, prolonged proxy war. Rather than exhausting their own armies in the harsh Arabian deserts, they both used loyal Arab buffer states to do the heavy lifting. The Sasanians backed our guys the Lakhmids, while the Byzantines backed the Ghassanids. So Arabia was essentially squeezed right in a geopolitical vice. Section 2. Who was Al-Numan III? This guy's background is literally out of a movie. Al-Numan was a son of the previous king, sure, but his mother was a Jewish goldsmith's daughter who had actually once been enslaved. He practiced Nestorian Christianity, and he was raised by a highly influential Christian poet who worked as a secretary for the Persians. Oh, and to even get a shot at the throne, he had to overcome 11 or 12 half-brothers. Get this. When the Persian emperor, Hormuz IV, was deciding who should rule the Lakhmids, he asked the brothers if they could control the unruly Arab tribes. Al-Numan boldly steps up and tells the emperor that he could not only control the Arabs, but he could control all of his brothers too. The emperor was so blown away by this absolute confidence that he gifted Al-Numan a gold and pearl-encrusted crown worth a staggering 60,000 dirhams. And we actually know these wild details because ancient chronicles, like the famous one from Al-Tabari, meticulously recorded these bloodlines in political maneuverings. Surviving texts like this really cement the historical reality of Al-Numan's turbulent rise to power, which happened right around 580 CE. Section 3. A hub of culture. Once in power, Al-Numan oversaw a true golden age. Al-Hirah wasn't just a military buffer, it was a glittering beacon of pre-Islamic Arab culture. It was a deeply cosmopolitan hub, blending Arabs, Persians, and Aromans alongside Christians and Jews. It boasted a booming agricultural economy fed by the Euphrates, and Al-Numan's court was absolutely legendary for patronizing some of the greatest Arab poets of the age, like Al-Asha, all while serving as a major center for Nestorian Christian monasteries. Section 4. The fatal rupture. But here is where the story takes a massive, tragic turn. The collapse of this kingdom reveals a truly bitter irony. See, back in 590 CE, Al-Numan loyally gave refuge to the Sasanian Emperor Khosrow II, who was fleeing a usurper, and even helped him win his throne back. But just over a decade later, diplomatic tensions flared up. That very same Emperor Khosrow summoned Al-Numan, threw him in prison, and ordered his execution. So what on earth went so wrong? Well, history offers us 2 very different, competing explanations. If you look at the Romantic literary traditions, the falling out was deeply personal. They claim Al-Numan refused to marry his daughter to the Shah, or wouldn't hand over a prized Arab horse, or maybe the Shah wanted revenge for the execution of a poet. But if you ask modern historians, they point to cold, hard geopolitical realities. The Persians likely just wanted to annex the Arab buffer states directly. They distrusted the rising Christian influence in Al-Hirah and were terrified of Al-Numan's ability to unite powerful nomadic tribes. Basically, it was an empire tightening its grip. But regardless of the real reason, surviving Arabic sources ground us in the terrifying reality of his capture. He was brought before the very emperor he had once saved, locked in heavy fetters and banished to a grim prison in Knigan. And that brings us to this lingering, dark historical mystery. How did he actually die in 602 CE? We honestly don't know for sure. Some sources vividly claim he was brutally crushed by elephants, others say he was poisoned, while some suggest he simply succumbed to the plague while locked away in that dungeon. But whatever the exact method was, his death marked the devastating, abrupt end of the 300-year Lakhmid dynasty. Section 5. The Battle of Dhi Qar. So with the Lakhmids entirely out of the picture, the Persians decided they no longer needed an Arab middleman. They figured they'd just rule the Arab tribes directly. But this policy spectacularly backfired, and it led straight to a monumental, earth-shattering clash. It all started over a demand for loot. Emperor Khosrow wanted the valuable armor and weapons that Numan had left behind with the Banu Shaiban tribe for safekeeping. But the tribal leader flatly refused, citing deep-rooted Arab honor. You just don't hand over entrusted goods to the enemy. This single act of defiance united the Arab tribes under a massive confederation, and brilliantly, they lured the heavily armed imperial Sasanian forces into a devastating desert ambush. The historical accounts of this battle are so incredibly cinematic. It was a scorching hot day. Arab women stood near the battle lines, fiercely inciting the warriors, refusing to let them yield. And there, in a desert depression, the wildly outgunned Arab tribes stood their ground against the thirsty Persian forces and ultimately humiliated the imperial army. Section 6. A lasting legacy. The geopolitical map had irreversibly shifted. By destroying their own loyal vassal state in Al-Hirah, the Persians inadvertently opened the door to their own destruction. The crucial buffer was totally gone, and the Sasanian Empire's western flank was now fatally exposed to the desert tribes. But beyond just borders, the psychological shockwave was absolutely massive. Early sources actually attribute a profound quote to the Prophet Muhammad upon hearing the news of Dhi Qar. This has been the first military encounter in which the Arabs have secured their just due from the Persians. A massive psychological barrier had been broken. The myth was shattered. The supposedly invincible Sasanian Empire could, for the very first time, actually be defeated by united Arabs. Numan III lost his throne, and his kingdom was completely wiped off the map. But here's the ultimate takeaway. By removing the Lakhmid buffer state, the Sasanian Empire created a fatal vulnerability that would be brilliantly exploited just a few decades later during the Islamic conquests. It leaves us with an incredible question. Did Khosrow's betrayal of Numan inadvertently change the course of world history? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity to learn even more.